Hey, if you're an actor at the start of your career, or if you're an actor who hasn't started at all, no judgment. But I do want you to know that it has never been a better time to get started with Backstage. Just go to backstage.com/subscribe and enter the code word envelope at checkout for a 30-day free trial. That's 30 whole days. You can browse through thousands of casting notices from thousands of filmmakers, producers, casting directors, all looking for talent just like you. Make a profile, upload a headshot, find out what kind of projects you want to be a part of. Backstage is where you book that very first role. It's also where you book that second role, and then that third role, and then you keep booking roles all the way up until you win that Oscar. And then you can come join me here on In the Envelope. We love a full circle moment here at Backstage. But first, you gotta subscribe, and again, that's 30 days free if you use the code word envelope at checkout. ENVELOPE, envelope, 30 days free. Get those roles. And I'll see you back here when I interview you when you win an Oscar. Cannot wait. Welcome to In the Envelope, a podcast from Backstage, the one-stop shop for actors and creators both above and below the line. I am your host, Vinny Mancuso, Backstage senior editor and professional entertainment obsessive. I'll be your guide through every corner of the creative industry with the help of some of your favorite stars. Here you'll find intimate, in-depth talks with today's most award-worthy names in film, television, and theater. Along the way, we'll get advice on living your best creative life, relatable stories of the highest highs and lowest lows, and maybe, just maybe, a rare peek in the envelope.
Yeah, just like taking care of my house and like seeing my friends, which is that stuff where it's like it feels so trite, but it's also like the most crucial thing. Like I feel like anybody if you're so consumed with making things, there's no reserve in the well. There's no real life in you.
Welcome to another episode of In the Envelope, the Actors Podcast. I am your host, Backstage senior editor, Vinny Mancuso, and joining us today is quite possibly 2023's busiest actor, the wonderful Ayo Edebiri. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what I mean by busy, head over to Ayo's truly packed IMDb page, where she has roles of all sizes in, let me make sure I'm getting this right, 5 feature films and 8 TV series in 2023. And that is not even counting the fact that she will, sometime in the hypothetical not-so-distant future, will be joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe in Thunderbolts, pending the ongoing WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes. But the role that most likely led you here and to Ayo is, of course, the Bear. Ayo's true breakout was as sous-chef turned restaurant owner Sydney in Hulu's kitchen set dramedy. Not only did it return for its second season back in June, but as of just a couple weeks ago, it also earned Ayo her very first Emmy nomination for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series. It was a joy to have Ayo here to talk about her entire journey, not just this last year, but all of the hustle in writers' rooms and stand-up stages and everywhere that got her to where she is today. And now, note before we begin, this interview was conducted prior to the SAG-AFTRA strike, which as of now is still ongoing. If you need any more information about that, whether it's updates or resources or what have you, go to backstage.com or straight to the source, SAG-AFTRA. Now, with that out of the way, here is Ayo Edebiri. Hi, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being here. It's really nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I just want to start off by saying that you are a fantastic Letterboxd follow. I am a huge fan of both your reviews, your dad's reviews as well.
Thank you. On behalf of my father, I can't take any credit for myself, but I'll definitely accept a thank you from my father. He's very good.
Yeah, I think I just read one of his reviews for I think it was Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh
He said
yeah,
yeah,
that
really
was sweet.
really insightful stuff.
That one was sweet. The Avatar one was my favorite one so far.
I think that's the one where he said he ate a whole bag of popcorn by himself. Yes, which
It makes me laugh so much. I can't tell if he meant to be funny or not, which also really gives me a lot of pleasure.
I think that's pretty much any dad talking about any movie where it's just so earnest, and it's just like, these are the thoughts I had while watching this movie.
Exactly.
I did want to. I mean, I find this really interesting to go to anybody's Letterboxd page and see their top 4 movies, because it's just I think that that kind of says a lot about a person.
Oh, sure.
So I wanted to see what the through line is for yours. Yours, I think, at this moment is Good, the Bad, the Ugly, Notting Hill, Phantom Thread, and Babe.
Yes.
Fantastic selections, by the way.
Thank you very much. Yes. There's some close tie between Phantom Thread and The Master. And then also definitely on the short list is Adaptation and definitely Tampopo. Yeah, those are all close calls, but those are my final 4. And maybe Paprika also. Paprika is tough. Also.
4 is tough.
4 is tough. But yeah, just try to give a nice spread. Give some classics. A little bit of highbrow, lowbrow. Sometimes the lowbrow is highbrow.
I love that.
Yeah, I think those are movies that I really just enjoy. And I also like that both Notting Hill and Phantom Thread have like one person behind us, like the other person is in front. So I like the 2 posters next to each other. Really,
that's the thing. It's like you kind of try. It's like, these are my favorite movies, but also I want the top of my page to look aesthetically pleasing.
Yes, and just like a little bit have people be like, "What is the through line?" And exactly, yeah. This is encouraging. Also, I'm close to maybe, I don't know, going mute
on everything.
No, on yeah, kind of, just a little bit, because I saw this Willem Dafoe interview where he was like, the reason why I keep working is because nobody knows my taste. But I feel like it's hard for comedians, and like that's what I consider like my career bedrock is like comedy. And I still do stand up, but just maybe not as career minded necessarily. Like I don't like, I enjoy doing stand up as having it as an outlet of expression, not necessarily something where I'm like, I want to do this thing by this year, or like so anyway, but even all that aside, like I think because comedy is like my bedrock, it's expressing my opinions is something that I'm so used to in my career. But it's interesting that I feel like, and even as a writer also, like saying your opinions or whatever, I think can be beneficial. But as an actor, I'm like, mystery behooves me a little bit. So be interesting to see what happens, social media.
It has been interesting to watch, the changing nature of, I guess, stardom, or even being a working act. I know that's nobody wants to hear that. So I guess like the nature of being a working actor in the social media age, where it's like, well, it's tough to be a Willem Dafoe type who just can do anything, because it's like people feel like they know you, even if they don't, of course,
right?
So it's interesting. I feel like people of our generation, we just sort of were molded by it. We just were like,
just post.
Exactly.
We know how to post. And then it's just interesting now, considering being like, maybe that's not something I want to do, or maybe it is. Like, maybe that's not something I want to do, or maybe it is, and I just make it extremely clear that this is a business account for business. Even though like art and being charismatic to a certain degree is a part of my business, that it still is, business. But I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, look,
I open up.
I just want to tell you a really good Letterboxd follow. But if you decide to go silent, I understand completely.
I know. Sometimes I'm like, I do need a burner account though, because I see things and I'm like, I just want to make a joke. But then like once I sort of made a joke about, what is it? Oh, a Robert Eggers movie, because I saw The Northman, which I loved. But my review is just like, I think it's so great that he makes white people talk crazy in the past. Somebody was like, look, you're never getting cast in a Robert Eggers movie. Yeah. And I was like, okay.
I like to think Robert Eggers would love that, by the way.
Me too. I'm like, that's what he does or has done so far. And it's like, it's banger after banger. So I'm not mad at it. I just was like, I thought it was funny. And then it made somebody mad. Maybe it was Robert Eggers on his burner account.
Exactly. Robert Eggers.
No, it's me. It's me, Robert Eggers.
I love that. So we don't have to talk about Letterboxd anymore. We should talk about The Bear. Which season 2, in case anybody's wondering when we are recording this, season 2 drops today. Today.
Yes.
How do you, as somebody who's in something, gauge like opening day, I guess you would call it? Is that something you prefer to just have your day, go about your day, do this photo shoot and stuff? Or is it hard for the fact that it's out into the world to like creep into your life?
And no, it's nice that it's out because I feel like I often get this rolling anxiety that happens before something's out, like in between finishing it and waiting for it to come out, where there's really nothing. It's sort of, you're accepting that there's nothing you can do. And then the day comes out, you're like, really, truly, there's nothing I can do anymore. Everything that was my part is done. And yeah, I just having sort of an anxiety about, how do people receive it? I think also because everything releases in one day. Some people are going to binge it and others are going to take their time. And also people outside of the US are going to get it in July. So that's just like another series of receiving people ingesting it. But also I've been trying to get better at not looking at stuff, which I guess circles back to the,
I think we need to get offline for a bit. Like,
no, I know. I'm literally like, we have to train the sharks in the ocean to cut the tubes. You know, the tubes I'm talking about, the cables. You know what I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah, the full internet, yeah.
Exactly. They gotta cut them. I gotta eat them. Oh my God, if the orca's organized.
I was going to say, they've already started. Like, it's already
that
kind
would
of
actually
like on
be
the horizon.
So sick. Like a little bit scary.
Incredibly helpful in one way.
In one way, probably a few genocides might happen, and nobody would know for a while. I think just waiting for people to ingest it. But yeah, I've been trying to be better at not really consuming that stuff. But I think overall, I'm just like, I feel excited that it's in the world, excited that we had a first season that people received so well, and so well that they were anticipating a second season. And I think most of the battle was just getting over that while we were filming, if that makes sense, and knowing that, accepting that, and being like, great, okay, that's not why we're doing it though. Like, we just want to make a good show and be honest to each other and the characters as we know them and feel them, and then to like ourselves as a community, and just continuing to hold ourselves up to a high, maybe slightly higher, but still I think a really high standard, at least as high as what we did the first season.
Are you the type of person at all who wants to watch their own work?
The first season I didn't really watch. I saw like a few things and I kind of like scrubbed through and we got the links, but I had a bit of a hard time just because like, I don't know. It's like, I felt like there's something about it where I'm like, am I being like narcissistic? I'm not like afraid of seeing my own work or whatever. Like, you know, I watch and listen to clips of myself doing stand-up all the time. Like I think as a comedian, you kind of have to get over that because so much of that process is you get direct audience feedback. Even though, and like that, learning that balance of like interpreting what that means, taking that in, but putting enough aside to be able to like listen to your own voice and continue the process of your own work as you see fit. Yeah, it's like very crucial to stand up. So I don't really have a problem like watching my own work or understanding my own work, but sometimes I think with TV, or something that I'm in, I just am like, oh, I'm being like a little bit of a narcissist, but I really do like the show. And I think there are so many good performances that I want to watch it like truly as a spectator. And then also I've been shadowing Chris for the second season, just because I've been learning more about directing, and he's been very encouraging as I've been doing that. But yeah, I've been watching some cuts just to like learn. And I was in a movie where the director, but the director was like, I don't want to give you a cut because it's not locked yet, and I don't want you to like be watching yourself. And I was like, no, I do that. Yeah, literally, it's fine. Give me the cut. Like, I'm not just gonna like only be watching my performance. Like, I'm capable of stepping outside myself and viewing this as like a project. I'm lucky to be in it. I know I'm in it, but like, I'm not gonna be too like wrapped up in my own stuff. And I wanna make things that I'm in. So I feel like that's like a skill that I'm okay with honing. But yeah.
I was gonna ask if, are you a process focused type of person? I mean, you mentioned you get the direct, as a comedian, you get the direct feedback and you don't mind watching stuff that you're in. Are you someone who thinks about, developing a process? I talk to a lot of actors and they're like, there are some people who are like, I do A, B, C, this is what I do.
Yeah.
And there are other people who are like, they say action and I do what I do. Are you someone who thinks about that a lot?
I think it's like a mix of both. I think when you're in it, for me, I try not to do too much thinking, but that is as a result of all the thinking, the hard work, the training, the focus, whatever that's like come before. Like in school, I took some acting classes, some like Feldenkrais classes, which I really loved a lot because a lot of that like method of acting is focused on the body and like the body's response. And me as a comedian, very physical person, I feel like I'm using my hands a lot. Like I've got very long limbs. I'm always stretching them. Like I just feel like I'm a very sort of kinetically aware person. But there's this one sort of methodology basically about, I want to like get it right, but about process and this idea basically that there's like 3 types of performing. I'm going to butcher this. I know that there's like proper terms for this, but I haven't like thought about this since school, so forgive me. But that there's basically 3 types of performing, and one is like learned, like where it's like you're thinking about process, you're thinking about all the things that you've learned, you're thinking about everything. It's very to the book. It's like correct. Then there's another that's where it's like just free flowing and it's like almost improvisation. And it's sometimes that feeling where you're like, whoa, I finished writing this thing. I don't know how I wrote it. I don't know what I did to get here, but there's some good things in it. It's messy, but it's good. And then there's like the zone, which is like the perfect mix of both of those things where you have enough of that awareness that you know that what you're doing is like based in skill, based in routine, like you have that solid, steady foundation, but you still have enough like free-flowing energy to be able to have a lightness and just to be able to like create. And I've really, 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 really butchered that. But for me, basically, like that's like the goal. And those are like the best days where you're just like, wow, we were all just sort of in the zone and we all like knew what we were doing, but also like gave each other enough freedom and space to just kind of flow. And yeah, I think like before a job, I'm doing a lot of thinking, a lot of processing. And then like after a job, I'm doing a lot of like, oh, okay, these are the things that happen. But while I'm in it, I just try my hardest to be present and like trust the fact that like I was hired for a reason, trust the fact that like I do have a general sense of what I'm doing, even if it isn't perfect. I'm sure I definitely do have like things that are routines or whatever, but like I don't think that they're interesting enough to I don't know.
Oh please. That's the kind of stuff we love. I mean, this is all for aspiring actors, people who are
I know. It's like I say that stuff and I feel so self-conscious. It's like weird, but I also like I'm like, oh yeah, all of us are babies, all of us are learning, even the people who are the greatest. I don't know when this is going to come out, but they're
August.
Okay, that's enough time to, I guess, be like a spoiler. But Jamie Lee Curtis and Robert Townsend are both in this season, and watching them work was truly one of like the greatest gifts of this year, because of obviously their skill and their dedication. But the thing that moved me the most was that both of them had questions and were nervous sometimes and just really were trying, and that just was so encouraging to me, like even these people who I view at such a high level and I really look up to they're still seeking, it's not finished for them. They're not resting on any laurels. Like they're still pushing and still want to learn and grow. And yeah, still were like nervous on their first day. Like that was just so comforting in a weird way.
Yeah, I mean, that is another funny thing about talking to so many actors and trying to get answers from them about their process, because I think in general, anybody who thinks they know the answers, anybody who thinks that they're like, oh, here's how acting's done, is usually a lesser actor. It's the people who are, like you said, they'll still pick something up on the day and be like, wow, I've never done that before. That's really interesting. It's sort of the curiosity of it.
Exactly that. Yeah, just trying to like stay open, stay curious, and give yourself enough like space to do that too. Like, yeah, I mean, I write as well. I think that is definitely foundational for me, like as a performer. And like I was taking classes, I was, performing, but like a lot of, I think the practice I got, especially in school, was like doing readings in friends' plays. When I would have like workshops and writers groups with friends, reading things out loud with each other, reading my own things. Like I think I like to read a script, and if I know like the character that like, I'll read for whatever, that's maybe, an option for me, I'll keep that in mind. But I really do try hard to like get a sense of the whole thing as well. And I feel like often it's like this thing of balancing, like, okay, I know sort of what this character's purpose is or their function is in this whole project, but while keeping that in mind, being aware of the fact that in this person's life, like they are the main character, like so still giving them that full sense of like dignity and respect, but also it's like, okay, I'm not gonna chew up the scenery too much, or like I know that this is not Sydney's moment necessarily. Maybe this is, Tina's moment or Carmi's moment, like in the function of like the episode, just like sort of keeping all those things juggling at the same time as well, but not too much. Maybe, I don't know how true that is.
You mentioned that, you were doing a lot of work before, you even graduated college of reading for other people's plays. And then when you were a writer, you were doing table reads. And I think I've seen you mention that, doing this sort of informal acting kind of made you think, oh, I kind of want to do this. And I'm curious if you have any specific memories of like, just doing something with your friends in college or doing something in a table read where you were like, I actually think I'm able to do this. It crossed the threshold into, I'm not just doing this as a courtesy. I'm doing this. I think I could actually do this.
I mean, I think it was always something that I enjoyed and wanted to do, but I think I just didn't really think it was like feasible for me. So I don't know if I was like doing it being like, how nice am I to be reading for your thing? I was always like, oh wow, how nice that you are considering
You're
me
letting
to
me. Yeah.
Read for this thing. I have a friend, C.A. Johnson, who's a writer, who's like an incredible playwright and has written for some TV shows. And she had this play that was just like a lot of our childhood. And I remember reading for that and just being like so moved and just being like, and just having this feeling of like, oh, I really love theater. That's definitely one that sticks out. What else sticks out? Definitely my second staffing job, I think, for the show Sunnyside. That was when I would do parts in the table reads, and that would be like the main cast. It would have people from the network there. So that, I remember, it felt like a big moment. And surely by that time, I'd also, like, I think Rachel and I were single, had already come out, and I had done like sketches and maybe had a stand-up video up online and stuff like that by that point. But I felt like for my acting career, that felt like a big stepping stone because it I just remember like doing those table reads and, like Cal Penn or like Joe Kim Booster, who also is a friend, but, would be like, oh, hey, good job doing that part. Or, like my boss, the showrunner, Matt Murray, would be like, oh, so-and-so from the network thought you were really funny. And I'd just be getting laughs. And that was like nice encouragement where I was just like, oh, okay, even if I do mostly end up just becoming not just, but if my career sticks on the writing path, I at least know that I do that performing still, there's still something there. And yeah, and that like bodes well for me as like a funny person.
I'm curious if you, and it seems like, I sort of, did a deep dive into your career and saw the solid progression of it. And
Apologies.
so it seems like no, it's I also feel like
it's literally my job.
No, I also feel like I also have to, it feels like I have to convince you that you're interesting because I do. You're a very interesting person, and you're very interesting. You're a very dynamic screen presence. But I am curious whether you felt the shift into a different type of medium. Did you ever? Did it all feel like it happened gradually, or did you feel the shift of, I'm really gonna maybe take a bit to focus on this?
I think so much of it now that I'm mostly acting, definitely, because I feel a bit like, I sort of miss writing a little bit. I want to make sure that I don't let that die because that's just very important to me. And and I love doing it. I remember being like so bummed I couldn't do another season of Shadows because it just like was not feasible in the same way that it was when I was just doing like maybe bit parts or things where I'm not as big of a character and I'm only shooting like 2-3 days a week. So then it's plenty of time to come into the room and write an episode or whatever. But so definitely now I feel that shift, but I feel like even with like when Big Mouth happened, like I was still writing in the room for like a season and I felt like I could juggle those things a bit more easily, for lack of a better word. But COVID did such a weird thing with the way time feels. Anyway, where I feel like the past like 2-3 years, it does feel like something just shifted, but also like just in the lens of like, well, I was outside my house and then I was inside my house and now I'm outside my house. Like, I feel like maybe some things might have happened where it might have felt like a little more gradual. Like there could have been events where I was going to where I was seeing people or, going to screenings or interviews or whatever, but it all just was sort of happening inside my house. So now, there's less of a transition.
A lot happened during a time that like doesn't exist. I feel that as well.
That simultaneously doesn't exist, but also like everything.
But so much.
Every
happened,
single possible human event happened. Yeah. So it's a bit strange that way.
I do want to talk about some specific moments from The Bear season 2 because I think that's sort of like a way into discussing that hard to describe process is just describing what happened on the day. And you mentioned Robert Townsend is in season 2 and there's this really lovely scene in episode 2
the diner
and it's just a very it's anytime you get that sort of back and forth, it's I'm curious, just what can you tell? That's a real two-hander scene and it's back and forth.
He's marvelous. He's so marvelous in it. Well, he came that day and I remember, I think that might have been the first thing we filmed together.
Interesting.
Definitely fact check that. Definitely fact check that.
I'll put a little edit here if it's not true.
If it's not true, then it's not true. If it is, then it is. But I remember he came and I was so excited to see him because he is somebody that I really, really look up to. And I have a little vintage like leaflet, like the movie leaflets that they used to pass out of Hollywood Shuffle, like on my desk, and I look at it every time that I write because I think he's just such a North Star for so many Black creatives and multi-hyphenates especially. But I remember Chris was like, there's a lot of really incredible options to play your dad. Like there's so much incredible Black talent. to play your dad. And then he said Robert's name, and I was like, it's him. That would just be the dream. And I, it'd be like, we kind of look like each other, don't you think? Then anyway, it ended up being Robert, and he came, and I remember I was just so excited. But yeah, I was really, really, really excited. And that day he was so lovely, and he was like, do you mind if we just run the scene with each other? And so we went for a walk around the block of the restaurant, and it was like at night, and it was just the two of us like walking around Chicago, like running this scene and doing it, a few times, not really with too much inflection, kind of marking it almost, but just to make sure we got the words and we got the feeling and we got the intention. And I remember us having this conversation where both of us had this feeling like, we know what this conversation is like from both ends. Just being the child of a parent, and having your parent just be like, what is going on? Like, you are an adult, but like, are you good? And I think the frustrations that can bring up and sort of feel, and that really hard to describe angst kind of just like wanting to be your own person, but still wanting the approval of your parent. And also for Sydney, like her one parent, like her dad has been the only parent that she's known for most of her life. So I think with Chris and I also, like in prep, we talked a lot about that relationship, because I am lucky enough to have grown up with both of my parents. I have friends who didn't, and that's sort of like almost like codependent thing that can happen. And so we just talked a lot about that. And then, yeah, Robert and I don't really think, we didn't really talk too much. We didn't do too much exploring beyond the page. Like, I think for him, also as somebody who is a writer, he was like, if it's on the page, that's where it comes from. And I really like resonate with that. And I remember sometimes having feelings like, as a writer, as an actor, to meaning as a writer for something, and then I'm watching it being performed,
Mm-hmm.
and as somebody's acting things, seeing other actors be like, oh, it's my motivation, or like, what's the backstory? And it's like, everything is here. Everything that's relevant is
I gave
like
it to
here.
you already, yeah.
And sometimes it is nice. Sometimes you do need to do a little bit of that, like work diving in, but then that's like for you. Like, it's not for the other actor. So yeah, we just sort of workshopped that scene with each other, and then did it a few times, but not too much, because I think Chris doesn't really like to belabor rehearsing. You obviously do to just make sure you get the marks and you have the beats of the scene, and so that everybody on camera, like on the camera side and the crew side, knows what's going on. But especially that scene, I think it's so tender that he really didn't want to do it too many times. And then, yeah, once the lighting was all set up and the camera was set up, we just kind of went for it. And we did it a few different ways. And yeah, that's what I remember.
It is a very, very lovely scene. I'm curious, I've read, and you just mentioned that something you do is you sort of modulate different deliveries between takes, and you mentioned you're doing it a few different ways. Is that something you prefer to do? Is that something you found you like to do? Is that something you've been told to do? Like, it's sort of finding the right delivery between like, oh, should I do it, quietly? Should I do it loud? Should I do it sarcastically?
Yeah, I think it's something that I like to do, and something that I feel like the actors that I've been lucky enough to work with also like to do. It's like you just want to find whatever clicks. I think what makes all of us sort of like respond and be able to respond to each other and with each other, like not just on your own side. Like, how do we make this just feel like real and kinetic and like it's actually happening? Yeah, and how do we just like discover something new each time, or something that just is at least making us feel and respond each time. And yeah, sometimes you do it because you get a note, but Chris's notes aren't really too prescriptive in that way. Like, but also it's like, that's I think the interesting thing about directors, it's like, or directing, like the way one directs each actor is not the same. Somebody might want like, and sometimes I've been on other projects where I'm like, just tell me do you want me faster, slower, louder, quieter? You want this to have a mean feeling, a nice feeling? Like, what you can tell me. But sometimes it's like, it's nice to get a suggestion, or sometimes it's nice to just have somebody be like, hey, keep going, follow your instinct on this one. See if you want to do anything different. So yeah, the way that I think actors, like not each actor is directed the same, but also like the way that you respond or are directed, want to be directed, also isn't the same on each project. And I think the filming style of Bear is, there's like space for that because, or for that type of play, for that type of freedom, because like the nature of the camera work is a little bit frenetic, and our camera crew is just so amazing, and they're very good at working with us and sort of leading us and following us back and forth. And then also sometimes it's like, hey, heads up, this is going to be a very still frame. This is like a quiet moment. I like to know that sort of thing also. I feel like sometimes I've worked with actors who are like, I don't even want to know like where the camera is. Like, I just want to feel like this is like a real human moment. And I really love that. But also like, I think there's that like producer side in me, and probably that side in me that wants to make things where I'm like, this is actually interesting to me to know what the frame is. And I don't think it will like affect my performance for the negative. Like, it's like nice sometimes when Chris is just like, just so you know, like, if you want to know, like, this is what the frame is, and like, this is my intention in this scene. And then that's also fun, because then I can sort of, just knowing that in the back of my mind might help me modulate, or maybe I just want to know because I'm nosy. I don't know.
I mean, acting for the camera is it's truly wild to me. The idea of it. I mean, like I like right now you can see my microphone in front of me. I'm very aware of it. I'm always very curious how actors like you said, use the camera, you know, knowing where it is, and that gives you a sense of like your frame, your lighting, your angles and stuff like that.
That was something that I felt very proud of. I remember when I went on to do bottoms after the first season, I was like, oh, I understand lighting and how the light feels on my face, and that I should turn my head a certain way so that I could feel the light on my face, so that I can be lit. Great. And it's like, it's not something that I'm like thinking about while I'm acting, you know, like consciously at least, but it's something that I know that is in my brain and can benefit me while I'm being filmed. But also sometimes you work on things where it's like the way that you're being lit is different because a specific lens is being used, a specific shot or whatever. And so just having a sense of that, I feel like for me is helpful, because then, if this makes sense, it allows me to release that so that I can focus on my performance, and so that we're not wasting takes because I don't understand how to like be physically.
It's that split brain thing that I find is hard to ask about and hard to describe as an actor, because it's like you don't disappear, you know, like you don't go away, but staying present means putting that somewhere else, you know, putting all that. No, it's the weird
Feldenkrais thing that I cannot describe, but that I feel like I think about a lot. And I also, remember like when I was doing Dickinson, I remember like filming this scene with Haley, and Emily is walking through this party and she's looking at people, and they had done the coverage, and Haley came up to me after and she was like, "You're not looking at me." And I was like, "Huh?" I was like, "No, I just have to like hit my mark and da-da-da." And she's like, I, as Emily, am trying to look around the room and look at people and make eye contact with them. Like, I want to look at you, like, look at me and like be present in this way that I wasn't like totally there for. And I think also I was afraid of like, well, if I look at you, then how else do I look at you, and not like ham it up and you know, like learning how to make certain expressions small to express something that sometimes even that stillness can do more than making a meal out of something.
Is that something that, you know, in terms of getting used to your surroundings, using your surroundings, that's something you have to get used to depending on the size of the actual thing? Like I have to assume that, you know, when you're working on something like Dickinson and then going to something like The Bear, which is relatively small, and then, you know, in the future you will be doing, you know, a Marvel movie. I'm not sure if you started doing it, but it's just sort of, is that something that you have to get used to in terms of like, okay, this is my setting. This is the size of it.
Yeah, I'm very excited, honestly, to get to do it because I've never done anything like it. And I'm really excited to get to learn how I'm going to be in that.
What that means,
and what that means. Yeah, I'm really stoked. I think it's great to get to broaden your horizons that way. And also like even like sizes of roles. Like I think there's just so much to learn. I love being like a sponge. Like I just want to learn as much as possible. I'm excited because I don't know, you know, and to me that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like those are always the situations that I've benefited from the most, where I'm just like I almost have no expectations other than like I just want to do a good job and
something new is going to happen.
Exactly. And I'm just if I don't know what I'm gonna learn, like that's like the best possible scenario for me.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's any? I mean, that just sort of reminds me of any time I've talked to somebody who's done a lot of improv, and they sort of talk about how part of the thrill of it is that you truly don't know what's going to happen.
100%.
Do you think that's something that's guided, you know, not only performances, but sort of how you approach?
It's like my life?
Yeah, basically.
No, 100%. I'm like, weirdly, I'm also like a lot of the therapy I've been doing this past year has been accepting the unknown, despite my sort of insane nature. I think I'm very much like somebody who's comforted by knowing what's going to happen, anxiety vibes. And I feel like this part of my life, especially like my later 20s, and as my career has been picking up, which means more stability in one way, but also a lot of instability, a lot of like being in a different place every 3 months, like that sort of not knowing, that flightiness, instability, whatever. It's just been accepting like I don't have any control, and that's actually great. And the person who's at the foundation of myself has been so far a pretty decent decision maker and pretty, you know, decent person, and somebody who enjoys learning and just tries to look at things as open-mindedly as possible. So just like trusting that and like allowing that to be true, and for whatever my life becomes, to just let it sort of do that. Yeah. But it's fun. It's like fun. I feel like some of the best moments in my life have just been moments where I just have no idea what's going to happen or who I'm going to sit next to or meet. But when you're lucky enough to be around people who are also just like trying to have a nice time, leave things better than they found it, it's like it's hard not to, you know, it's hard to complain.
You are in between projects right now. When did you wrap the Bear?
Well, this is my ability to tell time is really diminished. We wrapped in, I want to say, April.
So when you do something like the Bear, and you know,
literally could be a lie.
We will fact check all of this, I promise.
Literally, like this is gonna be your article. It's like talk to the most pathological liar I've ever met. Oh my God, literally that's not true, because we did BAFTAs in May, didn't we?
April was shockingly recently.
April was shockingly recently. If we did BAFTAs in May, were we still filming? You couldn't answer that for me. That's sort of on me.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know, unfortunately. The exact date doesn't matter as much as it does.
Me with my like
it's okay.
Devastated. Okay, April.
Let's say April.
April. Great. End of April.
When you do something like the Bear, and you know, you said that you try and insulate yourself and do the best job you can, and not think about, you know, are we going to get another season, stuff like that. What is the in between time like? You know, like when you
just catching up with my life. I'm so serious. Like truly, I'm just like, haven't been home since the end of last year. I gotta clean this place. I gotta like see my friends. I gotta do a lot of reading. That's been fun. Catching up on movies. I love going to the movies and watching movies. My Letterboxd. It's hard to go and like consume things for me personally while filming. Like I get really affected by stuff. Like, very like, you know, very energized, very consumed by consuming. So I really don't watch stuff while I film. If I do watch things, it's like comfort things that I've already watched. Like a lot of Agatha Christie stuff or like Monk. I did watch Poker Face while we were filming.
Very nice.
That was sort of like the modern monk hole where I was like, this is so delicious and consumable.
I think the guest before you on this podcast was Natasha Leone, who was truly everything that you could
my
want
angel
from talking to her.
From heaven. No, and just like a true genius and incredible human being and performer and creator. But yeah, Poker Face I definitely remember watching, and I watched Swarm because I was like towards the end of filming. But yeah, I mostly like don't watch things, so I think I'm just, when a filming is done, I'm like, oh my god, like here's all the things that were on my watch list. Also, I need to like call my parents, and I feel bad. I probably didn't walk my dog enough. The walks were truncated. Hiring some guy off WAG. He deserves a nice long walk with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just like taking care of my house and like seeing my friends, which is that stuff where it's like, it feels so trite, but it's also like the most crucial thing. Like I feel like anybody if you're so consumed with making things, there's no like reserve in the well. There's no real life in you.
Absolutely.
And I love living in LA, but LA can feel very insulated in that way, where you're just like, oh, everybody I know is somehow connected to the industry. That to me is darkness. And so I spend time here, but then I feel like I also like have been traveling a lot recently and just making sure that I like see my friends from my not industry life.
Absolutely. Very, very important. So as we sort of wrap up here, I did want to ask one last thing. I mean, this is a very exciting time, very exciting year. You're clearly everywhere right now. But the thing that is not true of anything is there's no such thing as an overnight success. You know, there's always the years of work, the years of hard work before. So I'm curious what you got, a skill you picked up, something you did during the before period that has sort of helped you deal with the now, which is overnight success.
Well, definitely working in a restaurant helped with currently now.
Absolutely.
Or being like, oh, I know how these people sound. I used to sound like them. I do think like a lot of that, just like that period of like grinding and like hustle. Honestly, I'm very glad that I did it, because I think a lot of that time I don't remember as much as I wish that I did. I wasn't spending time with friends as much as I wish that I was. Like I was just so focused on work in a way that I think I'm really grateful for that grinding period, because now I'm in a place where I'm like, I don't have to be like that. I don't have to give like 120% to work 24/7. Like I'm allowed to rest. I'm allowed to, and maybe I'm allowed to do that because I worked so hard for so long. Like, yeah, I really think times where I'm just like, my friends are all talking about this memory that they shared on this like group little trip that they did, this like spontaneous night out, and I was like doing 4 shows a night. But I'm glad I did that, because I feel like now it's given me sort of the space to be like, I'm a human being. I love being a human being, and it's like important for me as a human being, like not just like as an artist, like me as myself. Like I deserve to like have agency and to be an active participant in my own life. So I feel like, yeah, that's something that I am grateful for. I'm grateful for that. I was like a little bit of a nut between like 19 and God, how old am I now? Oh my God. Yeah, between like 19 and 24, I guess.
Yeah, that's the time to do it.
I was like almost going to be like, yeah, between like 19 and 21, because, you know, I'm like 23 right now. Not true. Yeah, but I'm glad that I went as hard as I did when I did, and that I was sort of unrelenting with my standard for myself, because I think it's allowed me now to look back and be like, that thing that I already said, but that like I did have a high standard for myself. Like I do always want to do excellent work and just like try to be a decent person, and like that's as much as I can do. That's like, if even that fails, like at least I'll have that intention, and I'm happy.
Amazing.
That's so cheesy. Was that like
No, that was great.
Unbearable.
That's we want to wrap it up with a bow. It's perfect. It's perfect.
So crazy, really like surreal doing this because I was trawling backstage for
I love to hear it. Anytime we can help.
my whole life. So yeah, this is really cool and surreal.
Amazing. Well, from the Bear and beyond, cannot wait to see what you do next. Hopefully when this comes out, everybody can get back to writing, but hopefully you can get back to writing too.
I did a thumbs up. I forgot this was a
yeah, for everyone at home,
podcast.
shoot a thumbs up.
I did a really massive double thumbs up. It was so aggressive.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, as always, to our brilliant producer, Jamie Muffett, and to the whole team at Backstage. Samantha Sherlock, Mark Stinson, Caitlin Watkins, and of course, Casey Howe. Visit Backstage.com, and don't forget, you can subscribe to Backstage with code ENVELOPE at checkout for a free trial. 100% free, you simply cannot beat that. For more exclusive content, find us on Facebook and Twitter at In The Envelope, and subscribe, share, and leave a comment. Who should we interview next? Let us know. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another peek in the envelope.